Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to 9R Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. Confessions of a Sociopath. A Life Spent Hiding in Plain Sight by M.E. Thomas is a provocative memoir that explores what it can look like to live with traits commonly associated with sociopathy while functioning successfully in everyday society. Rather than presenting a clinical textbook, the author offers a personal account of learning early that her inner experiences did not match the emotional norms expected by family, friends, and colleagues. The book traces how she studied social behavior, built a convincing public persona, and pursued achievement while keeping her private motives and reactions carefully concealed. Along the way, it raises difficult questions about empathy, morality, and the gap between outward charm and inner detachment. Readers also encounter the tension between self-protection and disclosure as the author weighs the risks of being known against the effort of constant performance. The result is an accessible, unsettling, and thought-provoking look at personality, identity, and the stories people tell to pass as ordinary. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, living behind a constructed persona, a central topic is the idea of passing, the deliberate construction of a socially acceptable self that can move through school, work, and relationships without triggering suspicion. The author describes learning to observe other people closely, not out of curiosity in the usual sense, but as a practical method for copying expressions, responses, and timing. This becomes a kind of social engineering: identify what others expect, then deliver it convincingly. The book highlights how exhausting that can be, even when the person doing it appears confident and high-functioning. It also explores the strategic nature of reputation management, such as choosing environments where ambition and assertiveness are rewarded and avoiding situations that demand emotional openness. Readers see how identity can become performance, with the private self protected behind layers of practiced behavior. Importantly, the narrative pushes beyond sensational stereotypes by showing how ordinary settings can accommodate masked traits when someone is intelligent and disciplined. The broader takeaway is that people are not always what they seem, and some individuals treat social life less like shared feeling and more like a complex game of cues, incentives, and outcomes. Secondly, empathy, emotion, and the question of moral intuition. Another major theme is the difference between understanding emotions and feeling them. The memoir distinguishes cognitive empathy, the ability to infer what someone else might be thinking or experiencing, from effective empathy, the spontaneous emotional resonance many people take for granted. The author presents herself as capable of reading others accurately while remaining internally detached, which reframes empathy as a skill that can be learned and used instrumentally. This leads into the book's exploration of moral decision-making. Instead of relying on gut-level discomfort, guilt, or compassion, the author often describes weighing consequences, personal advantage, and the likely reactions of others. The narrative invites readers to consider whether morality requires feeling or whether consistent rules and self-interest can substitute for conscience. It also surfaces the social function of emotion. Remorse signals trustworthiness, tenderness signals safety, and shared sadness builds bonding. When those signals are imitated rather than felt, relationships become fragile and transactional. The topic is compelling because it challenges common assumptions about what makes someone good. It encourages readers to examine how much of their own ethical behavior comes from internal sentiment versus learned norms, fear of punishment, or desire for social approval. Thirdly, power, competition, and the pursuit of advantage. The book repeatedly returns to ambition, dominance, and the drive to win as organizing forces in the author's life. Achievement is portrayed not merely as personal fulfillment, but as a pathway to leverage, status, resources, and insulation from scrutiny. Readers are shown how competitive environments can reward traits such as fearlessness, decisiveness, and emotional coolness, sometimes without asking what fuels them. The memoir examines interpersonal influence as a tool, from charm and confidence to calculated disclosure and selective vulnerability. It also suggests that people who do not experience strong emotional breaks may take risks others avoid, which can translate into professional momentum. At the same time, the narrative highlights the hidden costs of constant competition, including paranoia about being exposed, impatience with weakness, and difficulty sustaining genuine collaboration. This topic connects to a broader social question: what kinds of personalities do modern institutions reward, and how do incentives shape behavior? The author's account can prompt readers to reconsider workplace dynamics, leadership myths, and the fine line between assertive excellence and exploitive manipulation. It also underscores that success and psychological health are not the same thing, and that external accomplishment can coexist with internal disconnection. Fourthly, relationships as strategy and the limits of intimacy. Relationships in the memoir are often framed through utility, control, and risk management rather than mutual emotional exchange. The author describes how friendships and romantic connections can be cultivated for stability, access, or social cover, while deep intimacy remains dangerous because it increases the chance of being seen clearly. This creates a pattern of closeness at a distance, present enough to appear normal, but guarded enough to avoid dependency and exposure. The book explores how partners and friends may misinterpret confidence as sincerity and intensity as devotion, when the underlying experience is different. It also touches on how conflict can be navigated without the usual emotional discomfort, which may look like strength but can leave others feeling unheard or unsafe. A key point is that the author is aware of the gap and often treats it as a technical challenge rather than a tragedy, which can feel unsettling to readers expecting redemption narratives. Still, the topic is valuable because it illuminates how manipulation can be subtle and how trust can be shaped by social signals. Readers may come away with sharper insight into boundaries, consistency, and the importance of watching patterns rather than being persuaded by charisma. Lastly, self-awareness, labels, and the decision to reveal. The memoir's framing raises questions about diagnosis, identity, and the consequences of naming oneself. By adopting the label sociopath, the author confronts the cultural baggage attached to antisocial traits while also using the term as a shorthand for her lived experience. This creates tension between clinical concepts and personal narrative, encouraging readers to think carefully about what labels do. They can clarify, stigmatize, excuse, or oversimplify. The author's self-awareness becomes a major point of interest. She often recognizes which behaviors are socially unacceptable and adjusts tactics accordingly, suggesting that insight does not necessarily translate into conventional empathy. The book also explores the calculus of disclosure. Revealing a stigmatized identity might offer honesty and relief, but it can also invite fear, rejection, or moral condemnation. The decision to publish the story becomes part of the theme. Is it an act of accountability, a bid for control of the narrative, or both? For readers, this topic offers a lens on how society treats mental health and personality differences, how stigma shapes secrecy, and how personal stories can complicate simplistic villain narratives. It encourages cautious, nuanced thinking rather than reflexive judgment. In conclusion, this book is best suited for readers interested in psychology, personality, and social behavior, especially those who want a first-person perspective that complicates pop culture stereotypes. It can also appeal to professionals and students in fields like counseling, criminal justice, human resources, and leadership studies, not as a diagnostic guide, but as a narrative that sharpens awareness of how social signals can be learned, performed, and weaponized. The potential benefit is practical. It can help readers think more clearly about boundaries, persuasion, and the difference between charm and trustworthiness. It may also encourage compassion without naivete, showing that inner experience varies widely and that functioning well outwardly does not guarantee emotional depth or ethical reliability. Compared to similar books that lean heavily on clinical distance or sensational crime framing, this memoir stands out for its sustained focus on everyday life and self-presentation. It offers an unsettling honesty about motive and strategy, prompting readers to question their assumptions about empathy and morality. If you want a memorable, debate-provoking account that makes you more observant in relationships and institutions, it is worth buying and discussing. If you would like to support M.E. Thomas, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.